What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. I entered the right room today, so we weren't in different rooms waiting. This is a slate, if I've ever seen one. There isn't a lot of heavy firepower on this slate, but my goodness, this is a mess for a 7-game. We're going to try to navigate you through the choppy waters here. And on the wheel, Slim Cliffy, how you doing?
Doing well, man. Kind of a little bit frustrated about last night. We got the news, Columbus Jackets warm up, that Cole Sillinger was moving back down to the second line and Yegor Chinnikov was going back to the top line. I had Columbus won, so I took out Sillinger and put in Chinnikov, and then Sillinger has a 3-point night. Just one of those very frustrating swaps. In fact, you and I and Jake Harry, runs the NHL here at Stochastic, we're talking, it's like, we're thinking, how often have we seen the news, reacted accordingly to the new lines, and it worked out, as opposed to just leaving the old lines would have worked better. I remember, I think there was one night like 2 years ago where Alexander Barkov was legit like a scratch like 3 minutes before lock or something like that. Like he was even in warm up, and we made a swap to, I think it was Anton Lundell, and it worked out. But other than that, it really does feel like you get the right line combinations. You ended up screwing yourself. But I cashed most of my contests, so I'm not going to complain too hard. I like this slate here tonight because all the top, like no Tampa, no Colorado, no Toronto, no New Jersey, so on and so on. I think it leaves it pretty wide open. Like there are chalky spots we'll get to. I don't think you have to play the chalkier tonight. It's definitely one of those nights where I think you can definitely look elsewhere. There's some lopsided matchups. I like these kinds of slates. 7 games, not too many of the top end stars, kind of wide open. Like this is honestly the kind of night that I really love playing DFS.
Yeah, there is edges to be had for sure on this type of slate. Man, there's some chalk spots that I hate tonight, and we'll get into that. I see Frostback in here saying tonight is the night Leo and Cutter lead me to a GPP takedown. He's a Ducks fan, and he doesn't even know that they're not on the same line anymore. It's shame. Poo-poo on you, Frostback. But he was busy yesterday, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, let's get into this slate. I have to pick up the homie, my son, after school today because my wife is working. The audacity of her to go to work. But
can you believe it? She has a job and everything.
Can't even cook. Working. The hell is this? But anyway, let's get into the slate. Before we do, just want to say thank you guys again so much for the affiliate signups, the likes, the super chats, all that. We're on pace for one of our best affiliate months since we started it. And we started these shows in the middle of October. So I appreciate you guys a lot. Cliffy appreciates you guys. I don't know why I just don't say we. But yeah, you guys are awesome. Promo code Stochastic15. If you're not a premium member, will get you 15% off your first week or month. But let's get into this slate because I got some shit to talk. Philadelphia Flyers with a 2.8 total heading into Boston. The Bruins have a 3.6. It's going to be the corpse of Junis Korpisalo in net for Boston, not Swayman. It's going to be Urson for the Flyers. One of the chalky spots off the bat that I do not like here tonight is Boston 1, Pastrnak, Lindholm, Zacha. 18.2% projected ownership, and I'm fully expecting my DMs and messages going to be absolute garbage from the Bruins fans after this. Bacon agrees. They're doing for some reason, they're doing maintenance work outside. So if they go ham, that's why. We did not get word on the McDavid injury. He is heading back to Edmonton instead of going with the team to Detroit. So he's probably out for at least a few games. Again, I am completely fine with the Pastrnak one-off. Elias Lindholm is doing his best to drag Pasternak down to mediocrity. I cannot in full conscience, full stack Pasternak, Lindholm, Zacha on tonight's slate at 18.2% projected ownership. It is a little bit of negative leverage. The one thing, if you're like, hey, man, I love the Bruins in this spot here tonight, Flyers goaltending has been atrocious. Scott Ersson is their best of the three goalies, whatever that means. That's not really a compliment at this point in the season, but at least he's probably their only NHL caliber goalie. So in that sense, like Boston is in play. I just can't full stack them. They're so bad at even strength. Pasternak one-off is fine. I think a Brad Marchand one-off is fine, but I don't have a ton of interest in the Bruins here tonight. The Flyers side is a bit interesting because there are a bunch there. I mean, there's one really chalky standout line at 15.5, and the Flyers top line is 15.6, and they're coming in at like a fourth of the ownership. Konechny, Michkov, Couturier. I kind of like them tonight. Like I know Ray Rock, the Flyers fans in chat, saying the Flyers play bad in Boston. You know what the cure to that is? Matvei Michkov. He's looked really good to start the season. He's playing almost 20 minutes a night. There isn't a line on Boston coming back defensively that I'm worried about. I'm not saying they'll run out and play Flyers top line in single entry, but if you're in that 15K range, like I think I'd rather play the Flyers top line than the Islanders second line. We'll get to the Islanders game. I'm having trouble with that chalky line, and I'll explain why when we get there. But I do like that Couturier, Michkov, Konechny line. I think Frost and Tippett as a two-man are fine. This isn't my favorite game on the slate, but if you're looking to get away from Islanders chalk in that price range, I do kind of like Flyers top line.
Yeah, I'll start on the Boston side here. I wrote up David Pasternak in the picks article. By the way, a few people have asked. It looks like the picks articles for now are just going to be on Tuesdays. So it is up on the site. What I wrote about Pasternak is 4.3 shots per game, DraftKings shot bonus, and over half his games so far. But he individually has scored 6 of the 10 goals that Boston has scored while he's been on the ice. His line mates are shooting under 6%. And the big problem is they're not really generating anything. That Boston top line is presently constituted with Zacha, Lindholm, and Pasternak, is currently sitting at 3.1 high danger shot attempts per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. That is absolutely terrible. Last season, Pasternak and Zacha alone were at 11.1. This line is at 3.1. They're not creating anything. And it's frankly a miracle that Pasternak's been as productive as he has, considering how bad that line has been at 5-on-5. That's kind of why I agree with you. Like I'm not getting to Boston one here tonight. I don't think they're 18.5. The price is, like, technically speaking, the price is fine for a perfectly correlated top line at home against the Flyers. If this was the first game of the season and this was the price and this was the line, I would probably be playing them. The problem is that I've watched the Bruins for 3 weeks now, and this line sucks. And like until we see some sort of turnaround, like it's not as if they're creating a lot and they're getting unlucky. Like Edmonton, they lost McDavid, so we'll see what happens after that. But to that point, they were creating a lot. They just weren't scoring a lot. Nashville is creating a lot. They're just not scoring a lot. Boston's not creating anything, and they're not scoring a lot. That's the problem. So Pasternak, I really do like him as a one-off because he's one of those players, like, he can kind of overcome just about any situation that he's in. I just really have my doubts about bringing Zacha and Lindholm along with them. So kind of out on that. Like Boston too, I think is fine as a filler type stack, but there aren't really a ton of super expensive lines on the board here tonight. Like, yes, there's expensive Rangers. There's an expensive Minnesota line. Other than that, like, there's not really a reason to go down to like an 11K line here tonight. So I think David Pastrnak is one off my favorite. Is really the only thing I have interest in on the Boston side. On the Philly side, I do have interest in that top line. You want to talk about a line that is really trading chances? It's Konechny and Michkov. The league average for high danger shot attempts per 60 at 5-on-5 is about 11.8. That line so far per 60 minutes, that line so far this year, or the duo at least, Konechny and Michkov, is at 16.34, 13.4 against. So they are creating a lot. They're giving up quite a bit, which is why I really don't mind Pastrnak here tonight, but they are creating a lot. Konechny has a very reasonable price at 6,300. Boston is taking a ton of penalties. They are the most penalized team in the league at 4.8 times shorthanded per game. It's led to them giving up 9 power play goals against in 9 games. The Flyers power play for the first time, I don't know, in what, like 4 years, 5 years, looks league average. And we always said we just need this. We just need this power play to be league average for Konechny to be a point per game guy. Michkov, if he keeps getting 19 minutes, can probably be like a 70-point player as a rookie. That's all we need from them to be really, really productive. Boston's not good at 5-on-5 defensively either. Like, that's kind of the issue here. Not only are they taking a ton of penalties, but their 5-on-5 play really has not been anything to write home about. Like, they're 19th by high danger shots against per 60. Until we see this team getting better defensively, I don't see why you wouldn't pick on the Bruins, especially with Korpisalo starting. I really like Michkov and Konechny here. If you want to go down and go to that Frost tip at Forster line, I have no issue with that either, but it's really the Flyers top line that I'm the most interested in tonight. And they're very reasonably priced, 15,600 with Couturier between them. They have a positive leverage, 6.1% ownership. I like the Flyers side better. They've just been creating more offensively. And when it comes down to it, I don't see a big difference between these two teams defensively. So I'll go with the guys that are actually creating offensively and not just relying on David Pastrnak to rip off 8 shots a game.
I don't want to keep dumping on Elias Lindholm, but if you took his nameplate and number off his jersey and watched him play, you'd be like, why do they have this guy up in the top line center? He's been invisible to start this season, unfortunately, if you're a Bruins fan. Seattle Kraken, 3.3 total. Heading into Montreal, the Canadiens have a 2.7 total. What's his face? Uri Slavkovsky is back. For some reason, he's a center on DraftKings. He's also not on the top line. Why? Because fuck him. That's why. But the top line for Montreal is Caulfield, Suzuki, Kirby Dach. Second line is Slavkovsky, Newhook, Joel Armia. Seattle going McCann, Eberle, Beniers, Stevenson, Burakovsky, Schwartz, Bjorkstrand, Shane Wright, Eli Tolvanen. Okay. Seattle won. McCann, Eberle, Beniers, 15,100. They're $400 less than the Islanders' second line. They're coming in at half the ownership projected. They have a little bit of negative leverage. They're at 6% top 2, 8.2% projected ownership. Now, in 3 games since Beniers has moved up with Eberle McCann, they've all been between 16 and 19 minutes. And frankly, for Seattle, that's a miracle. That's a ton of ice time for Seattle. Beniers plays the most of the 3. McCann plays the least for some reason. But they are fully correlated at 15-1 in an elite power play spot. They're on the unit with Riker Evans, who's 3K. The other person on that unit is Eli Tolvanen, who's 2,900. You can full power play stack the Kraken for cheaper than Tampa Bay 1 was last night, but that neither here nor there. I do like Seattle 1. The minutes are a bit of an issue, but if you're going to give me 17 minutes at 15-1 in a good 5-on-5 spot and a great power play spot, I'm fine with Seattle 1 here. No interest in the Stevenson line. Stevenson sucks. He's going to bury me tonight, but he sucks. You want to play Wright, Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen? Again, there's no reason to play a $10,800 line, and Tolvanen at 5-on-5 will be lucky to get to 10 minutes. He does get that top power play time. But again, for me, it's Seattle 1. On the Montreal side, like Seattle's penalty kill is bad. That Montreal 1 is fully correlated. Just got a notification that Panthers are trading Deontay Johnson to the Ravens. So if you're a Ravens fan, like my wife, who's at work and not cooking, she'll be excited that Deontay Johnson is a Ravens. But anyway, Montreal 1, Caulfield, Suzuki, Doc. Historically, they have great numbers. They've been bad. But they're coming in with positive leverage. In MME, I think I'm going to get to some of them if I'm playing 20 to 150. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be prioritizing them in my single lineup. Just they're a little bit expensive for my taste considering how they played. Cliffy has a nice little microstat he can throw your way about that line. But Montreal 1 in MME, I will consider Seattle 1 in single entry.
Yeah, I'll start on the Seattle side. I did write them up in the picks article. Seattle, since the start of last season, has had some trouble scoring a 5-on-5. It's the one line that has been scoring well, 3.1 goals per 60 minutes and over 300 minutes together over the last season plus. What I will say is that the Montreal top line has been better defensively with Kirby Dach there as opposed to Slafkovsky, which I don't think is much of a surprise. Like Kirby Dach's actually like a good defensive center. I know he's playing on the wing, but he's a good defensive forward. Still not good defensively. They're still bad defensively, but they've been better. But whether they go out against Seattle 1 or whether they send Josh Anderson and Jake Evans, it doesn't really matter to me. Like, this is a really good 5-on-5 matchup for Seattle. The one thing that does worry me is like the Montreal penalty kill has been good. A lot of it has been driven by really good goaltending, and I always worry about penalty kills that are relying on goaltending. The thing is, this Seattle power play unit has not been good. They're at 75 shot attempts per 60 minutes, the McCann, Eberle, Beniers unit. 75 shot attempts per 60 minutes on the power play is bad. Like, that wouldn't even be top 20 at 5-on-5. That's kind of the issue, is that Seattle power, and they split time. That Seattle power play is not that great. The upside is they are only 15,100, as you mentioned. They're not coming in with a ton of ownership. 6% top 2 stack, 8.2% ownership. So I think Seattle 1's perfectly fine. If you want to drop down to Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen, I think that's like a fine little 2-man. They do have a decent sample together this season. If you need, if you really do need to get a pair of cheap wingers because you're paying up for the Rangers or something like that, I think that's fine. But yeah, Seattle 1. On the Montreal side, like, I do kind of like the spot for Montreal here. They have been scoring since they added Kirby Dach to the top line, which is, one of the things that is kind of important here for DFS. Now, they haven't been generating a ton, but, 66 shot attempts per 60, 5.4 goals per 60, that's shooting 15.7%. But even if they're shooting like 10% with the amount of shots they're putting up, they would still be about 25% above the league average. So they haven't been bad at 5-on-5 offensively. They were good a couple years ago when they were put together. Seattle does have a bad penalty kill. I don't mind Montreal 1 here, and it's going to sound homerish to say, but I honestly would rather play Montreal 1 than Boston 1 here tonight if I was looking in that price range. Now, I have other lines I'd rather play than both of them, but I think for me, it's kind of Montreal 1 or bust. But I think Seattle 1's actually my favorite line in this game.
Gotta unfuzzy myself there, but yeah, I just updated top stacks because Clayton told me we had a new run. Thanks, Jake. Ownership's about the same on most of these spots we've talked about already. Well, let's get to the next one. It's a chalk fest. St. Louis Blues with a 2.7 total heading into Ottawa. The Chuck Norrises have a 3.3. Josh Norris made his way into your article today, and I get it. He's playing like 19 minutes.
Second most ice time of any forward on Senators roster.
Their biggest issue isn't Josh Norris, and that's a horrifying thing to say. Like, Jake Sanderson, nice player. Very good player. Travis Hamonic is killing him.
That's the biggest issue is they have a coach that think Josh Norris should be a 19-minute player and that Travis Hamonic should be on the top pair.
Travis Hamonic should be selling Bud Light in section 309 is what he should be doing. Anyway, there is a lot of ownership here on the Sens. Ridley Grieg up on the top line with Tkachuk and Stützle. Second line is Batherson, Norris, and Giroux. Giroux has been an absolute monster since going onto that line. Top line 17-7, 14% top two stack. Percentage 16.1% projected ownership. Batherson, Norris, Giroux 8.4% top two, 15.3% projected ownership. Like chalk Sens always never feel good. We've never seen them fail in a chalky spot. The Blues suck. And like Buchnevich, Kyrou, Texier are awful defensively 5-on-5. Shen, Neighbors, Saad, awful defensively 5-on-5. They don't take a ton of penalties, which is, I guess, their saving grace. And Joel Hofer's in net, who has been pretty good. So, like, those are the reasons not to play the Sens. But, like, the second line of Norris, Batherson, Giroux at 14-7, cheaper than Islanders too, coming in around the same projected ownership. Like, I would almost rather play the Senators here than the Islanders. I'm not very comfortable playing chalk Senators. I think, if anything, I'm just going to go to Stützle, Tkachuk, Grieg. Norris, Batherson, Giroux kind of feels like chasing points, and if you want to chase them, that's fine. I'd rather just go to the line with the better long-term sample, and that's Stützle, Tkachuk. Now, Grieg doesn't have a huge sample up there with him, but I think a lot higher of Grieg than I do of Amadio. So I don't mind Ottawa 1 here. The negative leverage isn't as big as it is on Ottawa 2. So I'm going Stützle, Tkachuk, Grieg if I do have Senators in my lineup. Again, that Norris line is fine because Norris has a role on this team, and that's the most important part. Drew has been great on that line, but for me, it's Ottawa 1. On the Blues side, like, Ottawa's miserable defensively because of Hamonic. Like, he's just so bad. So bad. So, like, I do have interest in Buchnevich, Kyrou, Texier. I also have interest, at least from an offensive standpoint, in Neighbors and Shen and Neighbors, just because they play a ton of minutes. And Shen and Neighbors are both on the top power play unit, and the Ottawa penalty kill is atrocious. So, like, both of these Blues lines are coming in at 3%. So if you're looking to get a little contrarian on this very concentrated, chalky slate with bad lines, I think why not just get a little contrarian with other bad lines and play some Blues? Like, I honestly don't mind the Blues here until Ottawa moves Hamonic into the front office on an advisory role. I'm interested in the other team. So Ottawa 1 for me, and the Blues top 6 is interesting.
Yeah, I do have interest in Ottawa 1 because there are 2 chalk spots here tonight. There's this game, and then there's the Islanders that we'll get to next. I agree with you. I would rather play Ottawa than the Islanders here tonight if we're going to play a super chalky top line. One, Grieg and Tkachuk, just the 2 of them do have a decent sample going back to last year. 115 minutes together, 18.2 high danger shots per 60. That's like 50% above the league average. 5.1 actual goals per 60. Shooting only 11%. Like, that's a little high, but nothing extreme, certainly. You get 2 out of 3 guys in the top power play unit. Brady Tkachuk is shooting more often this year than he did last year. I like Ridley Grieg as a player. Stützle, like, the ice time and the shot rate aren't great, but top line, top power play, he's not priced, super extremely high. Like, if I'm playing any chalk tonight here, it is that Ottawa top line, especially where they've been using them more in depth matchups, which means seeing a fair bit of Shen and Neighbors. And Shen and Neighbors, like, their high danger shots against are like 20% worse than the league average going back to last season. Goals against something like 15% worse than the league average, like just not good defensively whatsoever. So I think it's a pretty good matchup for Ottawa's top line. I'm not super worried about the lack of power play correlation with Grieg not on the power play with him, because it's not really a great power play spot. Because as you mentioned, St. Louis only 2.7 times shorthanded per game. That's about a half power play fewer given up per game than the league average. But I think it's a pretty good spot for that top line at even strength. And they're priced pretty reasonably. So if I'm playing chalk tonight, it's that Ottawa top line. Want to drop down to Ottawa too? I think that's fine, because that line has been playing reasonably well. 11.7 high danger shot chances per 60, shots per 60. That's about league average. And God only knows, getting a league average offensive line out of Josh Norris is a miracle at this point. He's playing 19 minutes. Drake Basterson's on the top power play unit with him. So if you want to drop down Ottawa 2, that's fine. But it's Ottawa 1 for me. Honestly, I don't mind the St. Louis side here. I would just go to Buchnevich and Kyrou. I just don't have a ton of faith in Shen and Neighbors. I think they could actually just get completely run over by that Ottawa top line here tonight. Kyrou, Buchnevich, at least they've been generating something offensively. They're at 4.4 goals per 60 together this season, both on the top power play unit. No ownership on them. Like 4.3 top 2 stack, but only 3.4% ownership. 3.4% ownership on a 7-game slate against the Ottawa Senators. That's kind of interesting to me as a top line. So Kyrou, Buchnevich, and Texier is what I like best. So I think it's both top lines for me in this game.
Yeah, this game sucks. Let's move on to another game that sucks. Los Patos de Anaheim. The Anaheim Ducks with a 2.4 total heading into Long Island. What a miserable experience that is for everyone involved. The Islanders have a 3.5 total. This is not a game I am looking forward to at all. Let's just get this out of the way here. Horvat, Barzell, Simone Holmstrom, 14,900, 7.9% top 2 stack, 14.9% projected ownership. Brock, Nelson, Kyle Palmieri, Maxim Siplakov, 15,500, 9.8% top 2 stack, 15.4% projected ownership. Okay. Since Holmstrom has gone to that line with Horvat and Barzell, they've been awful. He's not a top 6 player. I'm not even sure he's a bottom 6 player at this point.
I'm not sure he's a top 12 player. Yeah.
Yeah. They called up Pierre Engvall, and he's still on the 4th line. Just put the homie up there with I don't know why these teams hate Pierre Engvall. All he does is put up good numbers. Okay. So I'm out on the top line here. The second line is more interesting. Nelson, Palmieri, Siplakov. They've been good, but the ownership is a bit crazy. Now, the one thing I will say is they went back to their old power play unit. So Nelson and Palmieri are on that top unit, and Siplakov's on the second. Like, Nelson getting top power play time is a huge boost to him. Like, in theory, I do like the Nelson, Palmieri, Siplakov line, but honestly, at that ownership, I'm just going to go play Brady Tkachuk and Tim Stützle for a little bit more money. I think if you want to play the Islanders, and the way to get a little bit different in this chalky spot is just the power play stack them. This is an elite power play spot. Now, the one thing that is giving me pause there is Lucas Dostal has been very, very good. Even last year, he was good. Now, it is the Ducks. They take a ton of penalties. Their penalty kill isn't good. Dostal's been great, but like, how great can you be in front of the Ducks all season? You know what I mean? So, like, in that reason, I'm fine with some sort of Islanders power play stack. But full stacking these lines, I'd rather just go play the Sens. On the Ducks side, we don't have any clue what the lines are going to be. They went full blender last game. Just going off how they finished in the last game, I think it's going to be Terry McTavish, Gauthier, Carlson, Zegras, Fabry, Vetrano, Killorn, Lundestrom. It's a pure guess. That's what the top stacks has. I don't have a ton of interest in that. Islanders don't take any penalties. It's Sorokin in net. They're a good defensive team, so I'm probably out on the Ducks here tonight.
Basically, for me, it's Islanders 2 or nothing. Like Simon Holmstrom is the genuine definition of a shot bot. He doesn't do anything. Doesn't play in transition. Doesn't carry the puck. Doesn't pass the puck. Doesn't play, fast off the rush. Not a playmaker. Doesn't drive the offense. Like literally, like he's fine defensively. You probably should be at the NHL level if you can't do anything else. And then he can shoot the puck when somebody passes it to him. That's literally it. He's not a good player. No interest in that Barzal line until Simon Holmstrom gets moved. For me, it's Nelson Palmieri, Siplikov, if anything. Nelson's projecting very well at Stochastic. I think he's the number 2 center on the board by fantasy point projections. He was in my picks article. He had very little top power play time this season. Still has 4 goals in 8 games. So if anything, Nelson Palmieri and Siplikov, they've actually been generating 13.5 high danger shots for 10.7 against per 60. So they have been creating. If anything, it would be that Nelson Palmieri Siplikov line. I kind of like just Brock Nelson as a one-off here. I just don't have a ton of faith in the Islanders that they're not going to shake things up again, because they've been doing it pretty much every game, whether at even strength or on the power play. Ducks aren't taking a lot of penalties. 2.5 times shorthanded per game. Average is about 3.2. Nelson went off. If anything, the Nelson line. That's basically the only thing I like in this game, amongst the forwards anyway. I don't have any interest in the Ducks here. And it's absolutely not going to be one of those spots where I see some different line combinations at 6:45 Eastern and be like, oh, I'm going to run out and play the Ducks. Like, that's not happening tonight. Just not a lot of interest in the Anaheim.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's rumors that Wah and Old Lou are not on the same page. Shocking that Patrick Wah is clashing with somebody. So, like, who knows what the lines are going to be. Minnesota. Let's get wild. They have a 3.1 total heading into Pittsburgh. The Penguins have a 3 total. Brian Rust out week to week. Lower body injury. Pittsburgh's loading up the top line. They're going Crosby, Malkin, Raquel. Somehow that line is only 19,000. That's how bad they've been this year. I think it was Jay Fresh Hockey who put out the numbers with Crosby and Carlson on the ice together, without them, with them, whatever. It was like Crosby, no matter who's on the ice with Crosby, they're just not good defensively. Now, like, can Crosby, Malkin, Raquel be good? Any good defensively? Maybe, but probably not. Like, I doubt it. And this team is giving up a ton of high danger chances against. I am interested in Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Rossi, 20,700, 19.1% top 2 stack, 9.5% projected ownership. I have no idea who they're going to send out against the Kaprizov line now. I don't think it really matters. If you want to dip to Boldy and Eriksson Ek, that's fine. But I prefer Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Rossi. I see a question power play. You can power play stack. Like, I don't know, like Pittsburgh's penalty kill is fine. I think I prefer other power play stacks. It's fine, but I prefer just full stacking Minnesota 1 here. I think Minnesota 2 is fine, but I prefer Minnesota 1. On the Pittsburgh side, like, I couldn't even tell you who's in the second, third, or fourth lines. You could say a couple players, and I believe you. So the only line of interest is the top line: Crosby, Malkin, Raquel. I have no idea how they're going to play together. I'm sure they'll be fine offensively. They're probably not going to be great defensively. I think that's more of an MME play. I'm more interested in Minnesota 1. If you want to play Pittsburgh, be my guest. I'll wait and see.
Yeah, I'm not going to say don't play Pittsburgh, because, they do have, 11.9% top 2 stack percentage, 6.5% ownership. There is positive leverage here. Here's the thing. At 5-on-5 this season, the team with the lowest high danger shots against per 60 is the Minnesota Wild. At 5-on-5 this season, the team with the lowest goals against per 60 at 5-on-5 is the Minnesota Wild. overall this season, the team with the second lowest power play opportunities given up per game is the Minnesota Wild. So they're not giving up power play opportunities, and they've been arguably the best defensive team at 5-on-5 this season. It's kind of like, if I'm playing single entry, why would I play Pittsburgh? Like, okay, Crosby and Malkin are together, great. Like they're also like a combined 79 years old or something like that. Like this isn't 2014. I would honestly just rather go pay an extra $1,700 to go play Minnesota. That I would way rather do that. So Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Rossi is where my interests are. I did write up Minnesota in the picks article today. Again, free to read over at Stokastic.com if you want to go check it out. The Penguins are giving up the third most shots and high danger shots per minute at 5-on-5, allowing the third most goals. Giving up the most shots and high danger shots, the third most goals per 60 minutes. Bottom half penalty kill. This Minnesota line's been very good offensively going back to last season. 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. The one thing that worries me about the second line for Minnesota is that Joel Eriksson-Ek's really not shooting a lot this year. And I'm not sure exactly why that is, because usually he has pretty good shot rates. The season hasn't been that case. So, Jared Spurgeon's coming back from Minnesota too. That gives them a boost on the blue line for both their side and, makes it a worse offensive situation for Pittsburgh. So, Minnesota 2, I think, is definitely playable here. Boldy, Eriksson-Ek, and Johansson, 5 goals per 60 so far this season, shooting over 12%. It's a little high. They are generating shots as a line. Boldy's been by far the best player, I think. You do get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play. Like, I'm not going to say no to playing Minnesota, but I can't imagine adding Evgeny Malkin to the top line is going to make Crosby's line better defensively. And Crosby's line has been pretty bad defensively this season. So Minnesota 1 is what I like in this game. And it's not even close. The thing is they're playable at 20,700. I think there are a couple spots elsewhere that I would rather go play in that neighborhood of the price range, but it is Minnesota 1 that I do like best in this game, and it's not even particularly close for me.
Yeah. The New York Rangers with a 3.2 total heading into Washington. The Capitals have a 2.8. This is actually a better game than I thought it was going to be. I had no idea how the Caps are going to come to this season with this random assortment of players. They've actually looked pretty good. On the Rangers side, I still think it would be Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere. They are up to $22K, which is a tad pricey for me. They do have a 20.9% top 2 stack, 6.6% projected ownership. But Washington has been decent to good defensively. And if I'm going to pay $22,000 for a line on this slate, I want it to be I don't know, the Avs against the Canadiens or something like that. You know what I mean? Like an elite power play spot. And this just isn't it. I think they're fine in MME. I'm not sure I'm going to get to them in single entry. Zibanejad, Kreider, Riley Smith, they're 15-8. If you want to get contrarian off the Islanders second line chalk, they're coming in at 1.6% projected ownership. I think that's a nice leverage play in MME. If you are power play stacking the Wild or something, Hedel, Kakko, Cooley, as long as Cooley can calm his jets and stay on sides, they have been very good this season. Cooley has scored 3 goals that have gotten called back by offsides, and it's been challenged every time, and I have no idea how the ref doesn't see it. He's 18 feet offsides every single time, but that line has been very good. So if you do need a cheap 2-man, that Rangers third line is fine. Again, not in love with the Rangers here on the slate. Washington, also MME only for me. Strome, Ovechkin, I think they're fine. Wilson, Dubois, McMichael, they're also fine, but I don't want to pin my single entry lineup on a 7-game slate going against Igor Shesterkin. It's just not something that I want to do. if you want to get to them in MME, perfectly fine. That Dubois, Wilson, McMichael line, 13-6, coming in right at their top 2 stack percentage. They're fine to get a little bit of. The Strome Ovechkin line, fine to get a little bit of. Zibanejad line, fine to get a little bit of. The Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere line is my favorite line this game, but again, they're pricey for the matchup. I would want them to be in a much better matchup if I'm going to pay $22,000 on this slate.
Yeah, that Washington Strome Ovechkin protest line actually been good this season. Like, got to hand it to them. When we did knock them quite a bit last year, you do have to hand it to them when they actually are producing 15.9 high danger shots per 60, 4.1 goals per 60, all at 5-on-5. That's pretty good. But you're right. It is facing Igor Shesterkin. The Rangers aren't really taking a ton of penalties. The Washington power play is not very good. So, if you want to it feels weird to say, but if you want to one off Tom Wilson, one off, even Ovechkin, I think those things are fine. The Caps is not where I'm looking to stack here. Here's the problem is that Ovechkin protest Strome line is $15,500 on DK. For $100 more, you can go get Konechny, Michkov, and Couturier, and I'd rather play Konechny, Michkov, and Couturier. There's still one more game to go that we can talk about that I would rather play a little bit later. We talked about Seattle one. I would rather play Seattle than that Washington top line here tonight. So the issue is that there are just other lines in that price range that I would rather play. On the Rangers side, I honestly would rather play the Zibanejad line than the Strome line here tonight. The Zibanejad line has not been good defensively, but they do have Igor Shesterkin behind them. That helps. They have been generating 14.9 high danger shots per 60 at 5-on-5. That's over 25% higher than the league average. Problem is they're only shooting 7.5%. If they were at 9%, which was about league average, this line would be considerably above average offensively at 5-on-5, and you get 2 guys on the top power play unit. The problem is Washington's penalty kill has actually been pretty good, but the Rangers do have a power play that can kind of make mincemeat out of just about anybody. So I think I agree with you that I would rather go with Rangers 2 here tonight. It's Zibanejad, Kreider, and Smith. 15,800, 3.4% top 2 stack, 1.6% ownership. Nobody's playing them. In a nutshell, though, I don't think this is a game that I really love stacking. I think it's the one game where I didn't have a single player, defenseman, goalie, or line in the picks article today. It's just not a game that I'm super excited to pick from. You want a one-off, like I said, you want a one-off Wilson, I think that's fine. You want a one-off, an expensive Panarin, that's okay. Those types of things I think are fine. If anything, I would stack the Zibanejad line, but it's really not a game that I'm looking forward for my lines here tonight.
Yeah, and them shooting 7.5% is probably about what they're going to be, though. Riley Smith's never been a high percentage shooter. Mika Zibanejad treats 5-on-5 like it's the power play, and unless Kreider's really near the net, he's not a high percentage shooter either. So you're probably going to see them between 7.5 and 10% all season or lower, because Zibanejad, sometimes can't hit water when he falls out of the boat. Let's move on to the main event of the evening, the only late game on the slate. Our Los Angeles Kings with a 3.6 total heading into San Jose. That's actually kind of miserable. Low-key, San Jose is awful. The Sharks have a 2.4 total. The suburbs outside of San Jose, very nice. The actual city of San Jose, trash. Actual city of LA, trash. Sorry if you live near there. But it's just true. For some reason, Anze Kopitar is 7,500 tonight. Kopitar, Kempe, Byfield, 19,000 on this slate. 10.6% top 2 stack. 5.5% projected ownership. Fiala, Moore, Deneau, 15,900. 6.9% top 2 stack, which is nice. 8.9% projected ownership. I think I like LA1. The price is kind of hurting my retinas a little bit. Kopitar and Kempe both over 7K, and then Byfield not on the top power play unit is giving me a little bit of pause. Like, they're fine, but I think at that point, I'd rather just go up and play the Wild. The Fiala-Moore-Deneau line, I have more interest in. But again, like, they're not very correlated on the power play. So if anything, I think I'm just going to power play stack the Kings because it's a great, great power play matchup. I got to take a deep breath before I say this. I actually prefer the Shark side, and it would be that top line of Granlund, Toffoli, Eklund at 16.5. They're coming in with a 9.2% top two stack. That's actually like crazy, right? Kopitar, Kempe, Byfield only have 1.4% better chance of being a top two stack than Mikael Granlund, Tyler Toffoli, and William Eklund. And the Sharks have a total that's 1.2 expected goals lower. The Kings are a mess. Like, let's not pretend like there's some juggernaut anymore. Their front office sucks. I don't want to. I like the Sharks here, man. I'm not a Granlund guy, but my God, does he play a lot of minutes? Toffoli's doing what I expected Toffoli to do on this team. Toffoli's one of those guys that they were missing last year, like one of those guys like when the Coyotes were really bad, Keller was still having a great season. Toffoli's going to be that guy in this team until Celebrini comes back. I do really like that top line. Like the Kopitar, Kempe, Byfield matchup isn't anything to be worried about. And that's not something you could have said like 2 or 3 years ago. But like Kempe and Kopitar just haven't been great defensively for the past few years. So I'm in on the Sharks top line here. Gonna have to go, get some oxygen when I kick it over to you, but God damn it. I like the Sharks better than I like the Kings here.
I don't. Listen, I have no problem playing San Jose here. Los Angeles has been taking a ton of penalties this season. It's the one thing that's really gotten them in trouble this year. Because honestly, at 5-on-5, this has actually been a good team. They're top 5 by high danger shot share at 5-on-5, and I think like 8th by goal share. So at 5-on-5, like they've actually been good, which I don't think we were necessarily expecting this year. The problem is that they're giving up the second most power plays per game to the opponent, and they've given up 10 power play goals against in 9 games. That is the problem. You can't give up over a power play goal a game and expect to look good night in and night out. And that San Jose top line is perfectly correlated on the power play. We talked about them yesterday on the show. They got there last night in the last 5 minutes of the game against Utah. And these two teams played last week, and San Jose only scored twice, but both goals were on the power play. This is a good power play match for the Sharks. Like I think that top line is perfectly playable here. No issue going to Granlund, Toffoli, and Eklund. The big problem is like I think they have to get there pretty much entirely on the power play. Like that's just kind of what I worry about. But yeah, I think San Jose 1 is very much in play here tonight, and like I would probably rather play San Jose 1 than any line from Washington. Let's put it that way. I'd rather play San Jose 1 than any full line from the Islanders. Let's put it that way. But I think in that price range, I actually like the Kings side a little bit better. That Fiala-Moore-Deneau line, they generate a lot. They have trouble finishing because Moore and Deneau are not necessarily great finishers. It is also a great power play spot for the Kings because the Sharks are also giving up 4.3 times shorthanded per game. They have also given up 10 power play goals against this season. They've just done it in 10 games instead of 9. They are undisciplined with a bad penalty kill. Now, none of these Kings lines are correlated on the power play. You get 2 out of 3 from the top unit on power play 1. You get 1 on line 2, 1 on line 3. Power play 2, it's split up 1-2-1 as well. It's not ideal. But the thing is, the Kings kind of split their power plays as well. Like it's like a 60-40 split. It's not quite even, but it's not that far off. And there have been times over the last few years where that Kings second unit has been better than the first. I like Fiala more and Danault here tonight. I even think that if you want to take off Fiala and make it a super cheap stack, you can put on Alex Turcotte, make it a power play 2 stack. I think it is a really good power play spot for both teams. I'll just go with the home team. That's really not like Los Angeles isn't carrying a ton of ownership, 5.5% on the top line, 8.9% on the second line, under 5% on the third line. Considering how bad this San Jose team is, I think those ownerships are pretty reasonable when you look at what Ottawa is and when you look at the Islanders are and things like that. So I kind of like the Kings here tonight. Fiala more and Danault for me, but I honestly think all three lines are in play here for Los Angeles.
That's kind of the issue that I'm running into, right? The correlation is an issue. They have 3 lines that can score. Like, yeah, sure. Like, the Kings are obviously heavily favored to win, but you're going to give me a fully correlated team against a fully correlated line against the Kings who just cannot stop a nosebleed on the penalty kill. I'll take a chance on the Sharks. I think, like, I do agree with more Danault. Fiala would be the line. But at that point, maybe I'm just like one-offing Fiala or making some sort of power play 2 stack. Gotta, stick with my guns. Let's talk about some defensemen on this lovely, lovely slate. John Carlson, the most expensive on the board. Not my favorite spot for him. I think Noah Dobson is number 1 for me. Jake Sanderson, despite having the Titanic boat anchor next to him, is in a good spot. Brandon Montour for the expensive guys. I think even Wallman, if you are going with the Sharks. I might be going with the Sharks. But yeah, interesting top range. There are some power play quarterbacks that are cheap that I do like tonight. So who are you liking?
Yeah, I have Dobson at the top. It's funny, like I don't really like the Islanders, but I think Dobson on the blue line makes a ton of sense. I'm not a fan of Mike Matheson necessarily, but like we said, this is a good power play spot for Montreal. He still plays a ton of minutes. Don't mind Matheson in the expensive price range, but yeah, certainly Noah Dobson's at the top for me. Mid-price range, like Montour or McAvoy, I think makes sense. Boston's had a lot of trouble scoring. McAvoy's down to 5,600. That's pretty reasonable. That is in that Montour price range. Montour's at 5,800. Those are pretty reasonable, like in that 5.5K range on DraftKings. Wrote up Brant Clark in the picks article. The concern about Brant Clark, it's like, is he going to play 16 minutes or is he going to play 20 minutes tonight? Like, he's not getting consistent ice time, but again, a great power play spot for him. Jake Wallman got his power play roll back last night because they scratched Jack Thompson. Wallman's back on the power play, back up to 24 minutes last night, so that's good for him. Certainly Brock Faber from Minnesota, still running the top power play unit. I'll mention Colton Parayko. He blocks a lot of shots. Ottawa does take a lot of shots, and it's not like they're great defensively. This feels like one of those nights where Parayko can do pretty well. For cheap defensemen, there's a bunch of guys on Anaheim that I think are playable. It just depends on who they play because they basically have like 8 defensemen in rotation right now, right? Zellweger's the guy I wrote up. He's on the top power play unit, over 21 minutes in 3 straight games. I do like Zellweger for cheap here. If Jackson Lacombe or Tristan Lunau are in, they're fine as well. Radko Gudas, obviously. I like Jordan Spence from Los Angeles. He had a rough first couple of games of the season. They got healthy scratched, and since he's come back, he's looked pretty good. Now, the schedule hasn't been too tough, but it's the San Jose effing Sharks tonight, so it's not like tonight's going to get any harder. Trevor Van Riemsdyk from Washington, he's cheap. Certainly Riker Evans running power play in Seattle. I'll mention Mason Lowry from Boston. He's a guy that I'm just really impressed with. It's just that his forwards outside of David Pastrnak, it's like if Pastrnak or the fourth line isn't scoring, I'm just not sure where the goals come from.
Yeah, and I'm hoping Lowry takes over the power play spot for McAvoy at some point this season. But it's kind of like the Riley Oliver Ekman-Larsson situation. Fox is fine, but like his peripherals haven't been great this season. So, I'm fine putting him in a Rangers stack. I just don't think I'd want off him here tonight. Goalies, top like 8,000 and above, it would be Shesterkin or Sorokin, the Xbox boys. If you're in the mid-range, like I honestly don't mind Joel Blomqvist. It's a little expensive for my taste. I wish he was like mid-range. So for like in the mid-range, it'd be Montembeault or Hofer for me. If I'm spending down, I probably won't go below Hofer, but if I absolutely had to do, it would be Lucas Dostal.
I have two goalies on my list, and they're in the same game. It's Dostal and Sorokin. If you want to pay down, play Dostal. If you want to pay up, go with Sorokin. Like, I really don't like this goalie slate. It's the one thing that does bother me about this slate is, like, I'm not a big fan of our goalie selections normally. This one feels particularly awful. Like, you know, if you want to hope Riddick can hold the shutout, like, go ahead. But, like, I'm not paying over $8K for an Ottawa goalie. I'm not paying over $8K for Korpisalo. I'm not paying for, 7,900 Seattle goalie on the road in Montreal because Montreal doesn't generate a ton of shots. That's just kind of the way I look at it. For me, it's like take Sorokin, hope for the shutout, or take Dostal and hope he sees 40 shots.
We just got to figure out which one Frostback is playing in that game, and we'll go play the other one. Who you liking for your hat trick pick?
I am going to the Seattle-Montreal game for this one, and I'm going against my Habs. I'm going with a guy that has, I think it's 5 goals and 12 points to start the season, even though he's only getting like 16 minutes a game. I'm going with Jared McCann.
I wrote that down that you were going to pick him. I can never pick my picks, but I can pick your picks. I'm going Matvei Mitkov because Boston sucks.
Can't wait for that 6-0 Bruins shutout here tonight.
Oh, man, my mentions will be unbelievable if the Bruins win this game. I can't wait. I do enjoy some good banter on the X Twitter. It's not X. But we will be back tomorrow, 6-game slate, Halloween Eve, Mischief Night, whatever you want to call it. We will be back then. We'll be in Discord leading up until lock, be on Twitter. Good luck, everybody. Hopefully you win some money, and go Mitchkov.
Good luck tonight, everyone.